Hello. How's everybody doing today? I hope you can hear me. I think you can hear me. The green and red and yellow colors flashing typically mean you can hear me. I am excited to be here today with all of you guys. I hope everybody's having a nice start to your weekend. We have the pleasure today of interviewing Jo Adell from the Los Angeles Angels. This is really fun. One of the really cool things that we get to do with with out of the park, because of our partnerships with Major League Baseball and with the Players Association, is we get to do these kinds of things, right? We get to talk to guys who actually play the game. Um, we get to thanks, Dr. D, for letting me know. Sorry, I was having some technical issues. We get to talk to these major league ball players, and because I'm not a journalist, right? I'm not a reporter. I'm just a guy who loves baseball and who loves baseball video games and who loves talking about baseball. To me, it's so much fun to talk to these guys because I'm just having a conversation with a guy who happens to be one of the 200 or 300 best baseball players in the world, and it's just so much fun. I'm so happy that we get to do it, and I'm so happy that we get to do it and show it to everybody here. That's so much fun. So that's what we're going to do today. Joe is fantastic, and I can't thank him enough. I can't thank his agency, the Boris Agency, enough for making it so easy for us to bring him on. These guys have a lot going on in their lives, and for them to take, an hour of their day to spend with us, and it's just awesome that they do that. So I thank Joe. I thank his agency. I thank Major League Baseball. I thank the Players Association, One Team, all of those great partners who work with us to help make these happen. So we're going to get to it pretty quickly. But before we do, I just wanted to say a couple of things real quick. Number one, I wanted to say thank you to everybody who's watching, to every single person in the Out of the Park baseball community. We are very, very thankful for all of you. You are the best community in video games, and we don't take that for granted by any stretch. I know I say it a lot, but I say it because it's true. You know, we don't take for granted the fact that we get to make Out of the Park baseball. It is a tough, it's a tough industry. It's a tough, tough in a lot of places in the video game space, obviously. If you watch the news, you know that there's a lot of ups and downs in this business, and the fact that each and every year we are able to keep making Out of the Park baseball and keep bringing it to you and keep spending time together, we just love it, and we're very thankful, and we're thankful to you, the community, for that. Also, want to shout out to our amazing streamer affiliates. Again, such a wonderful partnership with all of our streamer affiliates. They're so incredibly valuable to the community. And I just thank them, as much as I possibly can. It takes an extraordinary amount of work, effort, will, desire to do it as much as they do it. And again, I just thank our streamer affiliates from the bottom of my heart, because I know the community loves them, because they obviously learn about the game and they get, the content and all that stuff. But again, we're just thankful because, again, without the community, without our streamer affiliates, we wouldn't have what we have, and what we have, I think, is really cool. I think it's unique. I think it's important, and we just want to do this as long as we can, and as long as we have you guys as our partners, we'll be able to do it for a long time. So I just wanted to thank you, thank our streamer affiliates for helping make this a possibility. All right. Well, I think enough with that. Let's talk to a guy who is a actual Major League Baseball player. What do you say? Let's give it a go. See if I can get this to work right. I think I can. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you after the interview is over. Well, hey, everybody. I am so excited because we are here today talking to one of the most exciting young ball players in Major League Baseball. from the Los Angeles Angels, Jo Adell. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing great as well. I got a lot of questions to ask you because any opportunity I get to speak to a major league ball player is always really exciting. But I gotta start. Usually, I start at the very beginning, but I want to start with what you're actually doing right now today, because as Angels fans, they're probably dying to know. First of all, how are you feeling? Because you had an injury near the end of the regular season that cut short your fantastic season. How are you feeling, and sort of what are you up to right now in terms of recovering and preparing and getting set? Like what's your situation as we speak here in mid-November 2024?
No, absolutely. The last month of the season, I went out with a grade 1+ oblique strain, so I
Right.
was out and missed the portion of the season. But I've rehabbed it. I finished my rehab about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago or so, and took some swings, felt fine, and went into kind of my off-season vacation. So right now, I'm actually in Chincoteague, Virginia, right now on the beach. So me and the family are here hanging out and just enjoying it, and we're gonna be part of my 2 week vacation. Hopefully, I don't get too antsy and want to run back home, but I'm gonna try to get through 2 weeks of hanging out, and then the work starts back.
And what does that work look like for you, right? Have you ever had an injury like this, and like how do you approach what you have to do based upon, getting yourself back to where you need to be?
Of course. So I've had this injury 2 other times actually.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's been something that's kind of just been the kryptonite. I've done it twice swinging and one time jumping for a ball, and I basically just kind of pulled a little bit of that muscle towards the side of my rib cage. And there's really nothing you can do as far as rehab. It's a lot of just ice and contrast and stretching and just kind of waiting it out. So through the course of rehab, that's been my goal, is just to really continue to stretch, make sure I'm as flexible as I can be, and really just wait it out until it got back to 100%. And then about a week ago, I took some swings to verify that, I was good to go, and
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to just move into my off season. And when I come back, I don't plan on putting any restrictions on any of my work. I want to move my workload down just a little bit to protect myself, but I feel good. I feel good. I feel ready to roll, and just excited to get after another off season and go into the year.
That's great news for not only Angels fans, but all fans. Because one of the great things about watching Major League Baseball these days is there's so many incredibly dynamic young baseball players that are we're now able to watch every day, and you're at the top of the list of those guys. So that's great to hear. We're definitely rooting for you to come back at full strength and be ready to crush it in 2025. So let's sort of take a step back now, right? So if I'm somebody who might know the name Jo Adell because I'm a baseball fan, we saw you, crank 20 home runs this past season, but I don't know anything more than that. I'm curious, when did you start playing baseball? When did you sort of when did you, for lack of a better word, fall in love with the sport to the degree that you knew that you wanted to pursue it? And then also at the same time, when did you sort of realize that, hey, I might be able to, make this my job? Because there's not a lot of people. A lot of people love baseball like me who realize pretty quickly
Right.
playing big league ball wasn't exactly in our cards.
No, so it's kind of a funny story. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad played college and professional football, so we had a football background in the family to begin with, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to play football. My dad had coached some pee wee teams, and I thought that when I was 7, 8 years old, eventually I was going to be old enough to play on his team, and just that was going to be my path. And I got diagnosed with epilepsy,
Mm.
so when I was really young, through the ages of 8 through 12, I was susceptible to seizures and couldn't play contact sports. It was
Mm.
against protocol for me to play anything that involved me to being too aggressive or anything that could cause any trauma to my head. And so that's when we made the decision to get me in baseball and just kind of see, what other sports we could do. I played basketball, I played soccer for a year with my sister and just messed around to try to see what made sense. And I really fell in love with the game of baseball, and it stuck with me. And I always had a natural feel for the game. I had some attributes naturally that allowed me to be really successful and good young as a kid. And once I got to the high school level, I ended up being kind of that separator type of player, and knew that there was a chance that I was gonna do bigger things than even just go to college and play.
And in high school, if I have my information right, you were a two-way player. You were a pitcher and a hitter, um, and you were quite good at both. And then you had a decision to make whether to go to college, or then or if you were drafted, to go that path. Walk me through a little bit about sort of that whole process, right? Like, what did you enjoy more, being a hitter or pitcher? When you were drafted, was it under the terms of you needed to pick one or the other? Or I'm just sort of curious your evolution from being a dominant high school player on both sides, to sort of choosing the path to go to focus on hitting once you got drafted.
Of course. So originally, I was a Louisville commit, so I committed at the end of my freshman year of high school
Right.
as a primary pitcher. So I committed to Louisville as a pitcher first, and then on the back end, I was a hitter. So basically, they wanted me to come in as an available pitcher, starting pitcher or reliever, and then they would give me some at bats through the fall and give me a chance to hit on the team. But primarily, when I met with Coach McDonald and Roger Williams and those guys, it was, hey, we want you to come to the university as a pitcher. Want to give you the chance to come in and work and be a pitcher, and also be able to play the outfield as well. And so I was kind of in that situation. I think they had a player by the name of Colin Lyman at the time that was at the University of Louisville, and he was a relief pitcher hitter, and he was good. He did well, and so they had some success with it. And that's when obviously you saw Brendan McKay and some of those guys come through and have success with that. So that was my path originally.
Mm.
And then my hitting just really took off. I mean, I really dived into my hitting and my approach and what I wanted to do. I really became a nerd trying to figure out how to hit and how to be an elite level hitter. And before at the end of my junior year, it was kind of an understood that I was going to put the glove down and kind of be done, on the mound, and that I was primarily going to go as a hitter moving forward. But it kind of just evolved, over those 2 years. I mean, there was no real time where I just decided that, hey, I want to hit. I got better at one as opposed to the other. And I wanted to just dive in it. I wanted to be consumed by my approach and about how to be a hitter and how to be a great hitter. The pitching aspect, though, I loved. There's nothing, I loved pitching, but I loved it more on a competitive standpoint. I loved to go out and compete with it, but I didn't become a student of pitching. I didn't want to go into the game and go through reports and try to figure out how to make pitches. That wasn't a strong suit of mine. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. As a pitcher, you got to go through and figure out who the hitters you're facing and how you're going to attack them. I was more of a thrower with a good arm. I had a great arm, and that was part of it. But yeah, once I got to my junior and senior year, I started to become a top player in the class. I became a guy that was within the top 5 position players available. And before I knew it, the draft hit, and I had a decision to make. And that was a crazy, crazy time because, it wasn't like I was a draft prospect my freshman year of high school. It became that I was a guy that over the course of 4 years became somebody that was going to be selected high. And I had a decision to make, and it was tough because my parents both went to college, graduated, sister as well. And so that was a tough decision to kind of be the outlier in the family and choose a path that was less taken, I should say. But very glad I did.
Yeah, you sort of answered the question for me, which was, the decision once you were drafted to sign as opposed to go to college. There's a lot of different people, who would potentially want to guide you one direction or the other. And you mentioned your parents. Obviously, it sounds like they were definitely, at least to some degree, the hey, college is probably a good idea path. But on the other hand, not many people get drafted in the top 5, 10, 15, 20 picks of the major league draft every year. Only 5, 10, or 15 or 20 of those guys. So ultimately, was it, what you said, it was a hard decision. What were sort of the things that went into your decision to go the way of the draft with the Angels once they selected you?
Oh yeah. So kind of going into it, the beginning of my senior year of high school, I knew that there was a chance that, I was going to be somewhere within the, I guess, the first or second round. We were
Mm-hmm.
thinking that there was a chance that with my power, I was going to be somebody that could be a late round pick and, somewhere in the second round at some point and get paid. And we knew that going in, but we also weighed the, situation with college, still college in the back of my head too. I was like, I wanted to go play for Coach McDonald. I love the program over at Louisville. Um, I love the guys. I'd just kind of gone off my official visit. So I had that official visit, like excitement where I just come off the college campus and was ready to go. And then as the season progressed, I played an unbelievable year. I had 25 homers in 35 games and I hit 580, or whatever it was. And at that point, those numbers with the scouts that were there and what they saw, I started to climb up the boards, halfway through the year. And the money got to where it was just like there's really nothing I could do. Went from, top 30, pick in the first round to you could be drafted top five,
Right.
top 10, top five. And
Right.
so I think the money kind of made a decision for us as a family. But at the same time, we were all nervous about it. We didn't know what we were
Mm-hmm.
getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was the unknown. But after the first year, I knew that I'd made the right decision. And, I love to play. And that's what pro ball is, being in pro ball, as many guys as I've seen enter pro ball and not continue to play, you got to love it. You got to love the game. You got to love getting better. You got to take criticism with a grain of salt and use it to get you better. And I've loved it to this point. I still look at it and say, hey, what could I have done better in this situation? And go back and try to work on that. There's always something to critique, and that's why now I know it's for me, and I'm glad that I've continued to stuck with it and grind through the tough parts to this point.
Just talking to you, it's clear to me that you are embracing a lot of what it means. But talk to me a little bit more about, when you are a first round draft pick and when you are, in the top half of that draft, that brings a very specific set of expectations and pressures on on a person who happens to be a senior in high school, right? Like I have a son who right now is a senior in high school, and trying to juxtapose, him being in a situation where he is made the number one draft pick of the Los Angeles Angels, Major League Baseball team. Like it's unfathomable to me, but yet that's what you were, and you've been progressing. You had your first full major league season this past year. You went through sort of a process in the minors. You would get some opportunities at the major league level. Like, you've been grinding and progressing through that. But those pressures of being a top draft pick, that there's just a lot, right? Fans have expectations, management has expectations, you have expectations, right? Like, how have you been able to navigate those while having all eyes on you? And it's not like the Angels don't have a lot of eyes on them. They do. That there's a lot that goes with being a top draft pick. How have you navigated that as you've gone through the minors and into the majors?
No doubt. I think originally, especially for me, when I got into the draft after I was drafted, I showed up and I was in rookie ball. So obviously I wasn't, showing up trying to play for the major league squad right out of being drafted. That wasn't going to happen. But right when I showed up, in Arizona and got to the facility, I think it's the wake up call, because for me, it had been a while since I had failed or not performed. I mean, think about it. I was hitting a home run a game in high
Mm-hmm.
school, and I show up and I get in, and I never forget it. I get into the clubhouse. I walk in. Um, I didn't hear English for an hour and a half. I'll never forget it. I got in there and it was like there was no conversation that I could enter.
Wow.
There was no way to relate. It was Latin players. It was
Mm-hmm.
nothing but Latin players, great dudes I still talk to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a culture shock too for me at the same time as a skill shock. I get out to practice first day, and I haven't seen a 90-mile-an-hour fastball since the summer before,
Mm,
and these guys are playing catch at 90 miles an hour. You know what I mean? And it's like the speed of the game, it was the wake up call.
mm,
The first day of practice, I didn't even play a game. I was just out there for practice, and I was like, man, this is different. There is no way to compare it. There's no way to get ready for it. Even as good of a player as I was going into it, in comparison to the players that I was being compared to in high school, this is a broader scale. I'm being compared now against the best players in the world. I go from that small portion of United States, high school baseball players to now this is everybody put together. And there was a wake up call there. There was struggle. I didn't get a hit my first game. I went in my first pro game and got blown away, and running the bases was something that I never thought about it being a priority. But in professional baseball, you've got to know how to run the bases. You've got to know you can't just run on every play. You can't just steal second base when you feel like it. There's those intuitions that as you continue to play that you've got to figure out. And as a young 18, 19-year-old kid, I didn't know what that was. I
mm-hmm.
had to learn it. I had to learn the game. I had to learn my teammates. If I had a center fielder in rookie ball who didn't understand English very well, I had to learn how to communicate with him and let him know, hey, I've got the right center gap here. Hey, and use my hand signals and figure out a way to communicate. It made me a better player, but it also made me a better communicator, and it made me focus in on every part of the game and every play, because that's what matters most. And I think after a couple of years, you get humbled and you respect the game. And I think that's really what happened. But to begin with, yeah, I mean, I walked in and thought I was the stuff. And I had to learn very quickly that this is a different game. This is different. You've got to respect it. You've got to practice the craft. You got to own it. And yeah, that's again, they're throwing to the fire. They throw you into the fire. Believe me. But the expectation, I was able to manage it. I was able to find a way to get past when it didn't go well. And I think part of it was that the minor league system, the way the minor league system works, it allows you the chance to progressively move up and play in front of more fans and more people the more years that you play. My first year, I didn't play in front of anybody. It was scrimmage games and practice. It wasn't, I wasn't running out with Mike Trout day one. You know what I mean? There was a process that involved me getting better and me improving and me showing that I could handle the level that I played at. And then I moved up high A, double A, and as I went, there was a little bit more fans here, a little bit more expectation. The pitchers were a little bit better, until I got to that triple A level where, I'm sitting here at 20, 21 years old, and I'm thinking that, hey, like I've experienced this for 4 years. I'm ready for the opportunity to go in and see what I've got. And with trials and tribulations, I've battled, but I always remember that first day where I reported and how difficult it was. So even the moments that get tough now, I'm like, I've seen it all,
Mm. Anyone who has achieved success in their career can point to one or two or three key people in their lives. And I don't necessarily mean, your parents or your spouse or things like that, right? Like, because they will almost always have your back. But we all, anyone who's had some level of success has professionally, again, one or two or three people who at various points in times, for whatever reason, were critically important to your success, whether it's advice, whether it's reframing how you think about something, whether it's just by their actions and what they do. I'm curious, as you have progressed through the Angels organization, is there one or two particular individuals who have really helped you, you know, maximize your abilities and or better understand what it takes to become a successful major league ball player?
So I'm going to point out three, and they're three kind of in their own individual way that kind of really make me think about where I'm at now and the pieces that I took from each one of these individuals. The first one is Joe Madden.
Hmm.
So when I had Joe Madden as my manager in 2020, he was a quote guy. So Joe Madden read a lot of books, extremely, extremely smart. And one of the things that he would talk about in some of his readings was he would talk about, how they relate to players And one of his favorite things in spring training is he would get the group together and he'd say there's three types of players, right? There's the player that's happy to be there. There's the player that expects to be there. There's the player that expects to perform, and the player that expects to win. And those are the four stages of a major league player. And as I sit here and think about that today, I'm like, those are the stages. I remember the first time that I got to the big leagues, I was happy to be in the big leagues. I was happy to be there. I was happy to be around, Mike. And when I met Justin Upton and got to hang out with those guys, and Albert Pujols was a teammate of mine for a little bit before he moved on, that was happy to be there. And then I came in spring training the next year, and I thought that I had a little bit of time under my belt, and I expected to be there. So I wasn't happy to be in the big leagues anymore. I expected to be in the big leagues, right? I expected to be there. 22 comes around. And not only do I expect to be in the big leagues the following year, I expect to perform. I have that mindset about, hey, like, happy to be here is gone. Expect to be here. Well, of course I expect to be here. And now I want to perform. And then you got level 4, which is where I'm at now. I expect to win. I go out and I play. Now that I've been around the big leagues for 4 years, I expect to not only perform, but I expect to win games. I want to take these guys out and help them win. And so I think that was really a cool way that he would describe players and describe how the big leagues operates. He said, because it's okay Joe, to be here and be happy to be here. He said, you should be. But how do we get to number 4? How do we get to player 4 where you expect to win? So that was my first guy. My second one was Shohei. And the reason why it was Shohei was because when Ohtani was with the Angels, it was the way that he prepared for the game. Because when you're in the big leagues, like, you get to the big leagues, they expect you to have a routine. They expect you to know how to perform with your routine and the way that you operate. And nobody operated the way that Shohei did. Shohei showed up at the same time every day before anybody got there. And he did what he did. And it didn't change. It didn't change from 2018 all the way up until now. He did exactly what he needed to do to get ready to perform every day. So he was the master of routine, an individual routine. And then my third one would probably be Bo Porter. I played some of the best defense that I've played in my career up until this point. And with him in this first year as our outfield coach, he's taken my defense to a whole nother level. And that's something that was important to me, because that was something that was flawed in my game that I had to find a way to use as my superpower. And he allowed me to unlock that in 24. So those are the three for me up until this point.
All right. So 2024 was your first, I'll say, full year in the major leagues, which is, you had some trips back and forth from the minors. You spent some time at different levels as you went through, which is obviously very typical and probably was very good for you, as you mentioned, sort of along your journey to see all the different, have all the different experiences. But 2024, you really unlocked something. You hit 20 home runs, which, that's a lot of home runs no matter what. I'm curious sort of what, you think were the factors into your success this year, not just literally your offensive statistical success, but also just, being able to stay and be an absolute clear major leaguer. You're on the team, right? You're not somebody who's sort of on the fringes. I'm curious what really unlocked that and what enabled you to have the 2024 that you did.
For sure. Well, I think first and foremost, I think the first thing we point out is Ron Washington. I think with him coming in and having the idea of, hey, we're gonna give these guys a chance to go out and play every day, and not just in my case, but the entire roster. Well, obviously, we couldn't stay as healthy as we wanted to this year, but I got the chance to run out and be a factor every day. And, that's something that, I've been, waiting on and patiently working on my game to get to that point where I could get that level of trust to go and accumulate 130, 140 games, which is what happened. But first and foremost, I think the credit goes to Ron. I think the credit goes to a little bit, or actually a lot of it to Bo Porter, like I mentioned earlier, of him just getting with me and figuring out, okay, like how do we get this defensive part of your game to where there is no questions. If you go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, that your value isn't like you didn't exist. There's plays to be made. And so we got out there and got to work. And I think that was a huge part of my ability to be out there every day was my defensive value as well. So yeah, I'm just really glad that I got the opportunity to go play those games. And the 20 homers, for me, that was a soft goal going into the year. I wanted to hit the 20 mark in the big leagues if I could. And not going up to swing to hit a home run every time, but it was a number that, once I got to, I was pretty excited about how far I had come, and how I was able to get to that many games and play that many games in the big leagues and, help the team win games. So really a lot of it goes into, me just preparing to try to play every day. And I think that I found the rhythm to do that. Obviously the injury hit late, but yeah, it's an awesome opportunity to go and run out there every day. Doesn't matter, what team it is. For me, it's the Angels, and I was glad that I was able to go out and compete.
So we make baseball video games here. We make baseball strategy video games here. So we tend to be really nerdy when it comes to this kind of stuff. So our content director, Paul Spohr, the great Paul Spohr from Fangraphs and from Out of the Park, he gave me a few things that he wanted me to run by you. So we're gonna get into some numbers here. So one thing that he brought up, he asked me to ask you, what specific changes did you make to fuel your big power improvements versus lefties this year with 8 homers, which doubles your career total, as you had 8 versus lefties in your first 4 seasons, and then you cranked 8 in 2024. So did you make specific changes to help you hit those lefties but a little better?
Yeah, so obviously, I think for the left-handed pitching, I think more of my home runs in previous years against the lefties were a lot of opposite field home runs, if I remember that correctly. And I think what I did a little bit differently this year to attack the lefties is a lot of lefties were going inside, right? So a lot of lefties, instead of leaving pitches out over the plate to me, they recognized that out over the plate I do a lot of damage, and so I was able to avoid the crowding. So a lot of the lefties that pitched inside to me, I was able to game plan against them to say, hey, look, I'm gonna pull you. I'm not afraid to pull, against a left-handed hitter. And I remember my at bat. I had an at bat in Chicago that I remember very vividly, where they threw a lefty and there was a lot of crossfiring going on. I hit a home run at Wrigley, but I was looking for that pitch and I was looking for that area of the zone. So I would say with the lefties, more so zoning them up to what they're going to do to try to get me out. I know that the fastball middle away that the lefty throws, I see that pitch really well. They know that too. So more so really just the way that I was able to zone up the left-handed pitchers this year and figure out their plan. And most of their plans were to crowd me or go to below the zone. So I would give credit to that.
Another one he says is, what about your approach with the base stealing changes the last 2 years? You mentioned a soft goal of yours was to hit 20 home runs. Do you have a goal to become a 2020 type of a player? 20 homers, 20 steals, because we certainly feel like you can leverage your 28.8 feet per second sprint speed, which is good for the 86th percentile. Paul notes as well.
So one thing is, like, I stole more bases than I had stolen, probably combined minor leagues and major leagues this year alone, probably. And our goal was, hey, if you think that you have the key, which we would go over pitcher keys and what we're trying to steal off of, then go for it. I think at times I was too aggressive. I think there were situations where I shouldn't have ran that I ran. And that's, again, I go back to, this is the first year that I had the green light to really run. And so with that being said, I think there's a lot of improvement to go on when it comes to base stealing. I didn't have a number in mind for stealing bases because I didn't know really what our play scheme was going to be going into the season.
Right.
But I think my threat more than stealing bases is how many feet and how much ground I can cover very quickly. Even if I'm on first base, a single through the middle, I can get on third base. Mm-hmm. And I think that's value too. Not only is stealing the bag, it's a stat, absolutely, but first to third is huge. First to third in Major League Baseball is what it's about, especially with, no outs, one outs. It's fantastic if you can get to third base. So my goal going into 25 is going to be I want to get to third base. I want to see how I'm going to be most effective being on first base, whether I'm on second base, and just getting to third base and scoring.
Because you can't score if you don't get to third base first, right?
You can't. You can't. If you go second to home without third base, they're going to run that back.
Yes, they definitely will. We also know that you're from the new bat speed metric, that you have one of the best bat speeds in baseball, the 98th percentile, right? So, did you always know that you swung super hard, or was that eye opening when when you first saw that reported?
No, I always knew. I always knew that was my superpower. Coming out of the draft all the way through up until this point. I can really get the bat through the zone. And again, the faster you move the bat through the zone, also it's harder to be accurate with it. We
Mm,
know that as well. And I've had some moments where I've really got the bat speed going and all things are clicking at all cylinders. But I really try to stay away from viewing it like that. I view like if I can swing at my 80%, that's good enough to do everything that I want to do.
hmm,
If I'm swinging at 100%, there's a chance that the way that my intent in the box is a little too high, that
hmm,
I'm attempting to do something that is not naturally going to happen through the course of the at bat, trying to force it,
mm-hmm.
if you will. So I really try to, as much as it is tempting to really turn it loose, which I've never had an issue with since I was a kid. My dad was like, if you're going to swing the bat, you've got to swing it like you mean it,
Right, right,
Also, in the same point in time, if I have a runner on second base with less than two outs, you know, there's a job to be done.
right,
Maybe it doesn't require the 80-mile-an-hour bat speed, or whatever the
right,
metric is for that. But
right.
I always know it's in my back pocket.
Interesting, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
again, I got a lot more questions I could ask, but I just a couple more quick ones before we let you get out of here. Los Angeles, you mentioned you grew up in Kentucky. Los Angeles is a lot different than Kentucky. So, like, what are some of the things that you've come to enjoy about living in a different part of the country? And what, if anything, do you sort of miss when you're not, back home where you grew up?
Yeah, of course. I mean, LA, I mean, Orange County it's different. It definitely is a different feel. And no, just the weather's just incredible. I mean, that this is why people flock out to,
Right.
Orange County and the Newport area. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's 70 some degrees every day. I mean, it's hard to beat that. But also just the way that the people in Orange County, the vibe is very cool. It's very chill, it's relaxed. You know, culturally very diverse, and I've met such great people and really have enjoyed my time up to this point. But obviously, Louisville being home, I'm actually headed there in a couple of days, and it just for me, that's a city that I grew up with.
Right.
That's in the Louisville and the city of Louisville and the people there, and man, it's exciting. That's why when I went to Cincy and I played in Cincy, I had some former
Sure.
teammates and friends that
Yeah.
came out to the game, and really it's the area, it's the people in the area for me in Louisville. Will always love it, and it'll be home for me. But yeah, Orange County though, love it as well. I'd probably say they're tied at 50-50.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I love it.
A lot of people don't realize how close Kentucky and Cincinnati are. Like literally, if you're flying to Cincinnati, you're flying into Kentucky, and then you're going over the bridge into
I'm telling
Cincinnati.
you, I grew up a Joey Votto fan.
That's
That's
right.
how close we were. So
That's awesome. Um, so you said you have some soft goals. Can you share any particular goals that you have heading into 2025?
yeah, so going into 2025, goal for me, going into the year, and this is what I try to do is, I remember in high school I used to make these goals that were straight numerical. So like I
Mm-hmm.
would just write down numerical goals, and the Major League Baseball is so tough. It's a
Mm-hmm.
tough game, and it's tough because you can't look at the entire season and create a goal for that year. You almost have to create the goal by the week, or in the moment, by the game, by the day. And so my goal day to day is going to be, I want to go into the batter's box and I want to swing. My goal is to swing one time. My goal is to make one decision to swing the bat per at bat. And obviously that's not going to happen, but my goal is, hey, how disciplined can I be in the box to put off one swing per at bat, where I wait around for the pitch that I know I can handle and put off a swing that's going to allow me to do something. And then that way, walk rate is going to shoot up. The way that I'll be able to hit with runners in scoring position will be a top of what I've been able to do, because it's all about the chess match, the picking of pitches. That's what the game is. The best hitters, the Freddie Freemans, the Juan Sotos, the Aaron Judges, they pick out their pitch. They pick out a particular pitch that they want and they do damage with it. So my goal is to limit my swings per at bat and see if I can do some serious damage.
You have learned a lot over the course of your still very young career. Is there one major lesson that you have learned that's going to, is going to help you continue to be successful moving forward?
Well, it's funny. Ron Washington, he would come up to me, and this would be after a good game. Like I had a game against Seattle. I hit a couple of home runs, and he came up to me the next day, and he goes, "What'd you do yesterday?" And I'd be like, "Well, Ron, I hit a couple of home runs." And he would cut you off, and he'd say, "You ain't done shit today." And the lesson is that, dude, if it was good or bad, it's over. So you got to turn the page. You got to close the page for yesterday and move on to what's next. And that's what the greats do. So my goal is to, if it's good or bad, new day's following. You ain't done shit today. So
I love it. That's great. Well, again, Joe, I could keep on going, but I'll let you get out of here. Jo Adell, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a real pleasure. Every time I get to meet somebody like you, it's a big thrill for me. It's a thrill for our community. We are all now really going to be rooting for you even more next year. So best wishes of success to you and to the Angels and to everybody associated with Team Jo Adell. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Rich. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So there we go. There's Jo Adell, someone I can now claim as my close personal friend. Be rooting for him this coming year, along with all my other close personal friends in Major League Baseball that I've somehow been able to accumulate. All kidding aside, thank you again, Jo Adell. That was awesome. He's great, isn't he? Like, you can tell sometimes why somebody is a major leaguer, and you can tell why Jo Adell is a major leaguer. The dude knows what he's doing and clearly has a great support system. And yeah, awesome. So great interview. I also want to shout out very much to Paul Spohr, who when I sent him a note the other day, like, dude, I'm interviewing Jo Adell. You got any good questions? And within 13 seconds, he had like those three questions about his bat speed and about how his foot speed per second, which isn't even a thing I knew was a thing. About how he had improved his power versus lefties. So thank you very much, Paul Spohr, for that. I love it when you make me look good. It's just it's great when your team makes you look even smarter than you really are. So appreciate that, Mr. Spohr, as well. So that is going to wrap it up for us today. I'm going to try to raid over to the great Dr. Dynastics channel here in a moment. I think I can do it, but I don't know exactly. Like, do I type it in the chat and then hit return and then it happens automatically, or do I have to stop the stream after I do it? These are where I get so confused. Sometimes I'm like Tony Kornheiser. I feel like this world is not for me. The technology is passing me by, but I hope I can pull it off. So we're going to raid over to the great Dr. Dynastic, who we love and who, again, just talk about shout out. Dr. D, that guy, he's the man. Absolutely, positively the man. Love what he does with us, as well as all of our other streamer affiliates as well. So I just want to say, everybody, have a great weekend. Good luck to everybody in the PTCS tomorrow. I am once again not in it at all. Not that I'm mad about that. But good luck to everybody in the PTCS. Have a great time. We have all sorts of great streaming affiliate drops set up. So get those drops, rip those packs, have a great time. Enjoy the PTCSs. Enjoy the great sports. the football this weekend, the whole thing. As we head into the holiday season, you know, I get such a great feeling. The holiday season around the out of the park baseball community is so fun because obviously during the season we're doing all the stuff that we do, with the live stuff and with the season going on, and there's a lot of crossover. But I tell you, it's really the holiday season around out of the park is really fun because we're still releasing great new content. Paul and his team are just doing bang up jobs. But now that the real season behind us, our digital baseball really becomes a lot more important. Like a lot more important. And the fact that we got our leagues going and the tournaments going all holiday season, we're going to have all sorts of fun stuff going on. Nicolino has got a whole bunch of cool events planned and pop ups and all sorts of stuff. And oh, yeah, it's 80s week. I hope you're having a good time with 80s week. I know I am. So, yeah, we got all sorts of great stuff. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for being here. The best community in video games. Love you. You're awesome. I'm going to do my best to properly raid over to Dr. Dynastic right now. I don't know how to do it, but I'll give it a shot. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.